Alright, YouTube, behold, that didn't take very long now, did it? Merkel is going along with her party and saying, oh yeah, for the purposes of assimilation in German culture, we need a Burqa ban. Oh, that's funny. Wasn't it a year ago you were saying people were literal Nazis for supporting such a thing? See, here's case in point. Like I said yesterday, now I wasn't aware that Merkel had said this until after I made my video on the EU's inevitable upcoming collapse. I said people are going to be lied to increasingly by these establishment globalist pro-migrant parties in Europe. They're going to blame Putin for the rise of the so-called far right. They're going to blame evil Nazis. They're going to crack down on free speech. And they're going to do this. They're going to do some maneuvering to convince you, the European people in various countries, that these parties now recognize that they actually caused a problem. It is not in the nature of politicians to do so. So if they are doing so, there's an ulterior motive involved. Angela Merkel does not care what specific social policies she supports. This is a band-aid on a gaping wound. What she wants to do, read further into it, she wants to keep bringing migrants into Germany. And the only way that she can keep her job while doing that is to look like she's doing something to encourage assimilation that will never actually happen. Most of the people entering Western Europe from abroad right now, under this sort of refugee crap, are not refugees. They have not been displaced by the civil war in Syria. They're not Syrians. Most of these people are from elsewhere. Many of them are Libyan, or they're from Pakistan, Somalia certainly, maybe Yemen, Oman, some of these countries. That's where they're from. They're economic migrants. They want to go to West. They're not going to stay in Poland. They're not going to stay in Greece. They're going to go to the UK, France, Germany, Sweden, places that will give them free money, free housing, and essentially leave them alone, such that if they engage in crime, they get a slap on the wrist punishment because no government there has the balls to actually prosecute somebody who happens not to be a member of the native culture. That's what this is about. You will be lied to repeatedly for the next few years. As the European Union begins to lose more and more power, as it begins to lose more and more favor, they're going to pull out all the stops to convince you that if the EU falls, Russia will immediately invade Eastern Europe. Western Europe will immediately fall into chaos and these countries will somehow begin fighting one another. Nobody will be able to trade with anybody else, and it will suddenly go back to I don't know, the World War I period or something politically and socially. This will not actually happen. But they're going to tell you to think of the children. They're going to tell you first, we have a responsibility to these migrants here. Think of ethics, think of morals. Oh, we have to do something for these poor, needy people that we ourselves let in. That in the case that they are refugees, we're helping to cause the refugee crisis by funding the FSA in partnership with Uncle Sam. Oh, and by the way, all these, the Five-Star Movement, Front National, UKIP, they're all sponsored by Putin. He wants to take over Europe politically because he realizes he can't do it in a military sense. A bunch of bullshit. These countries want to be stronger. The Five-Star Movement, UKIP, Front National, the Swedish Democrats, all these groups, they want their nations to be stronger. If the European states compete with one another, and if the less developed states can stop getting brain drain, the West European states can temper their welfare state, Europe will be more powerful. It will be more able to respond to external problems. It will have more military strength. It will have more wealth. It will have more cultural stability. The problem is that what the EU really is meant to be is a superstate. It was never meant to be a sort of confederation of states simply pegged to one currency and with free movement. That's not the point of the EU. Any more than here, the point of the ACA was an actual overhaul of our healthcare system. It is the same principle. You institute a system using a moral argument. With the ACA, it's we've got to get the uninsured have to have insurance. We have to take care of these people. In the case of the EU, it's we want free trade. We want a peaceful, prosperous, stable Europe with a strong currency that can respond to aggression more easily because we'll all sort of be in the boat together. That's how Europe was anyway. That's how it was anyway before the EU, at least the states that weren't part of the Soviet bloc. that hadn't been co-opted by communism. If it hadn't been for that, there would have been peace reigning anyway. No, the Soviet Union's dead. People are worried. People seem now more worried about Russia in its crippled condition currently than they ever were about the Soviet Union, which at its height had, 3 or 4 to 1 missile superiority over NATO and a relatively vast land area and a much higher manpower than it does now. You're worried about Russia as opposed to the USSR? They're not even communists anymore. They're using the same sort of government system, the same corporate interventionism that's found anywhere in Europe anyway. What do you have? Why would you even care if the Russians took you over? Their system's the same as yours at this point. The Eastern Europeans are not simply going to sit there, bend over, and become communists again just because the EU fails. Western Europe isn't going to regress into potato patch mode unless you keep paying for people you can't afford to sponsor. Europe is out of money. You don't have the wealth anymore necessary to take care of these problems. The great European ethos of we will remake the world in our image, we will make things magically better, we will meddle in all world affairs and design them according to our schemes and plans. How are you supposed to do that? All of Europe combined, the entire European Union, isn't even equal, despite having, I think, twice as many people in it and a similar land area, isn't even equivalent to the U.S. economy. And don't even get me started on your military capabilities. You're acting like the European superstate that's to come, which is what they planned all along, magically is going to become a world power. It wouldn't even be as strong as China. It'd be stronger than Russia, other than the nuclear question. But you'd still be in third place. The U.S. and China would still be collectively in first and second, and there's not much to be done. Your density is already achieved. You've already had your heyday. The only way that Europe continues to be any form of power is to crack the EU apart, get competition in there, and work with your various chosen states around the world to develop them. Go put up some factories in Africa or Latin America or something. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to stand in your way. Be friendly, yes. Be friendly with one another. You can work together as far as your militaries are concerned. But right now, the system there is stagnant, like the ACA. The point of the ACA was to institute a system on a moral basis that would not work, so that subsequently, a further democratic administration could argue for single payer. That's the plan all along. Now, that plan failed. We stopped them. There will be no single payer in this country. It's not going to happen. I don't think the people would have, I don't even think some leftists would have stomached it. Honestly, even if they had suggested it. I think it would have been at hazard the moment it was suggested. It failed. The TPP, which is a similar proposal, won't even get implemented at this point, nor will the TTIP. They will be defeated, which is good. It's great for the United States. Hopefully we get rid of NAFTA and all these other crappy-ass interventionist deals too. In Europe, the goal is to create a loose confederated framework, pump it full of migrants, up the crime rate, increase social stress, and then propose as the solution, because we can't cope with differential welfare dole, differential, development, differential immigration quotas, and so it's not working. We need to create one state. We'll federate now. We'll become the United States of Europe. That's what they're going to tell you they should do. Thankfully, at the rate the EU is declining, I don't think they're ever going to get a chance to implement it. I think their plan has already failed. Eastern Europe would stand in their way anyway, probably, because they know what it's like to lose sovereignty. I think they'd start to split off. What they're trying to do now is they're trying to hardball the UK, which voted for the Brexit, by trying to use the media. They're doing that here, too. They're doing the same thing. All you have to do is find the connections between the European media and the American media to see what's going on right now. They are telling people over in the UK especially, people that voted for the Brexit now are against it. People have buyer's remorse. They're saying the same thing about Trump here. Have you seen the same exact line of, we can't normalize this in both Europe and the United States? What do you think these people are doing? They're trying to save their jobs. They're trying to save their increasingly expensive government pensions. It all boils down to their money and their power. That's what they care about. Ultimately, the people like Merkel, no, they don't have strong feelings in favor of globalism other than it's their cash cow. That's why they support it. If somebody were to offer them more money to be nationalistic, they'd probably be nationalistic. You see what Merkel's doing now. She's pretending, yeah, we need assimilation, no more migrants, we can't do it anymore. We're losing money, the crime rate's gone up, people aren't assimilating, we need a burqa ban. It's a joke, it's a ruse. She doesn't actually care about this issue. She doesn't care if anyone assimilates. She doesn't care if everybody who comes into her country suddenly starts killing people. She doesn't care as long as it doesn't hurt her chance of re-election. That's why she's doing this, to save face. Hollande is not even going to bother seeking re-election. He's so embattled he won't even make it to the second round anyway. In the UK, you see, Labour, the prime sponsor of multiculturalism, sort of the slightly further left than so-called conservative movement there, because their conservative movement, honestly, is a complete joke. It's cuckservatism. It's barely even that. Has lost so much power it's basically regressed to minor party status. They're losing. It's not just the Brexit that took a toll on them. It's not just their last election. They're still losing steam. It's amazing to watch as the UK actually comes to its senses. Europeans are waking up faster, honestly. I will say this, I was wrong. I didn't expect them to wake up this quickly. I expected it to take the next couple of decades, a very, very slow, painstaking process for Europe to wake up to the threat that was right at their door. Honestly, I didn't know if they were even going to make it. I expected that in some of these countries, before they woke up, the wolf would have already barged into the hamlet, so to speak, and devoured all of the livestock, which is a pretty good metaphor, by the way, for Europe right now. Merkel is a wolf. Hollande is a wolf. David Cameron is a wolf. All these people are wolves. Devouring the sheep as they may, getting nice and fat and sassy off of that glorious mutton that they're devouring constantly. But you'll be lied to more. And when this tactic, if it doesn't work, they'll switch to a new one. It'll probably be a moral argument. Look for moral arguments. Whenever the government passes a bill, for instance, the Patriot Act, the Think of the Children bill, or something like that, does it ever actually have anything to do with the positive vibes that they're trying to associate with it? Does the Patriot Act have anything to do with patriotism? No. It's a big government takeover surveillance bill that has to do with denigrating our constitutional rights. It's unpatriotic. It's the exact opposite of patriotism. It's the exact opposite of the American ideal. The European Union, is it unionized? Is there any element of togetherness, or is it causing nothing but alienation? The latter. It's causing lots of social alienation. It's causing more problems than it ever could have possibly solved. That's the point. The point is to create social stress to move towards a superstate. The Affordable Care Act, is it affordable? No. That was just a selling point that they used to get people to support it and not protest the fact that it was being implemented. The Supreme Court had to rule it a tax just to keep it constitutional. And yet people still talk about it as though it was a help to our country. Oh, a few million more uninsured people got added to insurance. Yes, and a few tens of millions of other people are paying through the nose for the plans they had before. They're paying twice as much, or they've dropped to a lower level plan to save money, or they can't even get the plan that they had before that they were obviously happy with because they were purchasing it in a somewhat private marketplace. That's the point. So you're going to be lied to more. Merkel is lying to you when she says she cares about a burqa ban or assimilation. She doesn't. She doesn't give a fuck about these things. Hollande doesn't care. Cameron doesn't care. None of these people care. Renzi didn't care. It's wonderful that the Italians are beginning to save themselves. They're following in the footsteps of the UK and Iceland. By the way, Iceland with the Pirate Party, they're not really on board with globalism. They're an anti-censorship party at their core. We'll see what happens in France. We'll see what happens soon in Denmark and Sweden, possibly even Germany. Merkel could continue to lose more and more steam. It's now at the point where her career is in its twilight. If she gets re-elected at all, she won't have any sort of a social mandate, let's face it. But Germany is still run by a person who is essentially East Germany mode. She's not into capitalism. I think we've seen that. She's a globalist. She likes Brussels more than Berlin, so to speak. That's about all. Peace out.